We're going to talk about one specific open educational resource, which is um, this John J. Justice e-reader, which is a digital textbook. But I'm hoping to kind of go through these, and I promise the slides are more just like reminders to me. So we'll look mostly at this textbook. I'm hoping that the showing part is somewhat brief, and then we just have time for you all to talk about any experiences you have had doing this, any things you've heard about it, um, anything you want to share with each other, which is kind of in the spirit of OER. Um, so we'll get started. Um, just a quick like agenda. Why are we talking about this? One is that, I'm as you can see, there are many, many talks about AI and things related to AI. And that is a point of concern, or inspiration for a lot of people. But, I'm hoping as we look at this textbook, we can see that a lot of the challenges and even the goals still are there that were there before AI. And similarly, that when we're talking about using technology to teach, it can be pretty simple stuff. It does not have to be the most sophisticated Technicolor technology. Um, but one maybe major difference that has been an ongoing difference as more technology gets involved in education is that the utility of memorizing facts or kind of passively receiving knowledge that increasingly takes a back seat in a lot of classes or in a lot of disciplines. So this one form of pedagogy, and there are a bunch of other names for it, but OER, Open Educational Resources, um, ask what learning can be besides the accumulation of facts. What are ways to get students to use or ponder, challenge, repurpose the things that they learn? And so maybe internalize it a little bit better for having actually worked with it or manipulated it rather than just memorizing it. I'll mention a few different pedagogies. So one is OER, Open Educational Resources, active learning, there's transparent pedagogy, there's project-based learning. I'm sure it's not like the most appropriate thing to say, but they're basically the same thing. They kind of all go after the same gist, which is getting students to work with the information rather than memorize it. And then one key feature of OER specifically is that the materials are easily accessible so that instructors can get it, edit it, revise it, remix it, all that kind of stuff. So I just don't want us to get hung up on the terms. There are specific differences. I think you all working in higher ed, you kind of know, you know what they are. Uh, so just talking about this class and this textbook, just so we have a tiny bit of background, um, the book that we're talking about, and we're going to look at it more, but just so you have a thing to picture. It is, when I say digital textbook, I mean it's kind of on a website that we'll talk about called Pressbooks. So this is sort of like the inside of the front cover, and we've got chapters and stuff down here. So we'll look at it more in a bit, but just so you know what we're talking about, we are talking about that digital textbook for this class, Humanities 300 Landmark U.S. Supreme Court Cases. It's a digital open source textbook. Whoops. And it's been a collaboration between faculty, instructional designers, various librarians, various staff. This predates my time here, but Wynne said this began as a blog in about 2017. So the textbook part of it was a blog in 2017. The course has been around since about 2020. And when I say digital textbook, um, it's got syllabi for the courses, it's got articles and chapters, it's got assignments. And the faculty who have made all of this stuff, they meet, I would say at least once a semester thus far to talk about assignments that they've piloted, what has worked well, what hasn't worked well. What is it like teaching this course in person versus hybrid versus online mixed, where there's some Zoom courses, versus online asynchronous, where there's no Zoom courses? So this course is taught in every modality. Um, Transfer students take it as their transfer seminar, their Justice Core 300, but other students can take it not as a transfer seminar. Um, so as a result, there are many versions of this course that run in many different modalities. What is the course? HUM 300. So it's landmark Supreme Court cases. Most of the classes feature one or two Supreme Court cases and a related theme. Um, so to give you an example, we'll just come back over here and you'll see on the table of contents here, Black experience from Plessy v. Ferguson to Brown v. Board of Education, right? So those are the cases there. Stop, question, frisk, and the law, Terry v. Ohio. You can't say that, exploring freedom of speech and art in the law. So it's a bunch of First Amendment cases, um, so on and so forth. So there is usually at least one central case. Sometimes there's more, but it is not a law class. Um, so it's kind of thinking about how does the law touch other parts of society, culture, art, industry, etc. And so there are three major assignments that define the course. One is an introductory assignment. It gets students to think about what those connections are between this case and other parts of society. Then there's a connection to workplaces assignment. Um, so that's not like a vocational assignment. The point is not to get students like working on their cover letter or their resume. It's more when they're talking about a landmark Supreme Court case. It's easy to imagine that the only people involved are Supreme Court justices and maybe some like very high profile attorneys, prosecutors, but that's not the case. There are all kinds of other people fulfilling all kinds of other roles. Um, in administration, law enforcement, sometimes in healthcare, um, civil servants. So it's just helping students to see all the other roles that are involved in these important cases. And then the last thing is some sort of a summative assignment. So near the end of the semester, the students have been doing activities and assignments that have been showing them how the law connects to art or to politics or to the economy or technology or whatever it may be. And now at the end of the semester, they try to find some connections of their own, or they try to restate some of those connections in a new way. And we're going to look at some examples of those briefly, but they can be simulation style assignments where, for instance, a student is put into the role of um, it could be an executive for a reproductive health organization, and they are thinking about guidance that they're giving to some of their clients in the wake of Roe v. Wade being repealed. Or they might be a police chief in a rural town and they're looking at the connection between higher unemployment rates and crime. What would they do about that? Things like that. Other activities are a moot court, so like a debate, and that's kind of, I guess, more squarely in the law or legal arena. But these three assignments, these are common features to all sections of HUM 300. So like I said, the classes are very different. They can focus on different cases, but they'll have some version of these three assignments. Um, and so hopefully these assignments are in place of like a standard midterm exam or a term paper. And that's going back to that point I was making before about trying to get students to use the information somewhat creatively or critically in a way that they might, in their job or elsewhere. Features of the e-reader. So the e-reader is the digital textbook that I was just showing you. It is on this website called Pressbooks. And there's all kinds of textbooks available through Pressbooks, a lot of them made by universities, but also by other institutions. Let me just maybe show you the very front page of Pressbooks. So it's this page, and you can go to this directory, and it's just a big database. There's tons and tons, hundreds of different books that are made by people, most of them affiliated with a university, but you don't have to be. Um, and most of them falling in the camp of this OER, Open Educational Resources. So we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute, but the general idea is these books, they have these licenses underneath them that tell you how you can use them. Um, and in some cases, you can just take the material right out of these books. You could copy paste it into your Brightspace. You could copy paste it into a Google Doc and edit it, change the language. You would just attribute where you got the original from. So they work differently than a traditional textbook, which obviously you couldn't alter. This textbook, it's two different books. One is the textbook itself, which is meant for the students. It has chapters, articles, guides, and then there's a faculty guide that has sample syllabi, assignment ideas, and some information about kind of ed tech things that you can do on the Pressbooks platform, which I'll show you in a bit. So just before I launch into showing you some assignments, does anybody have any questions about digital textbook, HUM 300, OER? No? Okay. So let's look at some assignments. This is just to save me clicking around, but we're still in this same book that I was showing you before. You could navigate to this through the table of contents, but we're at an assignment, a summative assessment. So actually, let me just show you. On the table of contents, we had HUM 300 assignment samples. We're in this faculty instructional resources guide. So this is more instructor facing, like the students wouldn't necessarily see this. They could. And then this is an example of an assignment called a summative assessment. And so Andrew Majeski, who I believe is in the English department, made this. And it's a group video assignment. He looked at public statues and um, other public works that had been damaged or vandalized or the subject of either protest or, I guess, censorship. And so he had made a video where he showed one such statue getting, I don't know, damaged in his hometown. He encouraged students to make videos about things related to that same topic. Um, and so he has instructions, he has some audio for students to listen to, and then this is like the assignment page that you would give in your class. It's just posted onto the textbook. Obviously, we're not going to read through the whole thing. But students work together to make a video about a topic that they do some research on. And at the bottom, there is like a bibliography, um, some of which is referring back to this same Pressbooks. So here you see this one, it says Terry v. Ohio, Oyez. I'm just gonna show you where that goes to. Well, this links out to this open resource um, law organization, but there are also um, resources in the book itself. So let me just show, for instance, this is another feature of the textbook. There are these case summaries. These are not made by John Jay faculty. They're made by an organization called Street Law. And so they're just like, we put some of those into the textbook, and the faculty can use these if they want like a quick summary of what the course is, and they don't want the student to have to navigate out to another website. So there's a combination here of faculty-made stuff and then pre-existing OER. Um, and I also just want to show you that, sorry, I know I'm doing a lot of clicking around. I hope that's not giving you like vertigo, which sometimes happens to me. Um, Let me show you that. Okay. So this is the same professor. This is also this video project, but another part of the project is that some of these faculty created sort of textbook chapters for this textbook. This one is about Dred Scott, but it's written sort of in the first person. So you see there's some context here about Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, and then the professor describes in his hometown in California, there had been a Gandhi statue, and then somebody had cut it off at the feet. And so the professor, I'll just show you a second of this.
Hello, this is my local statue video, and I am in my town's Central Park. I'll just show you a little bit of it. Behind me here is the playground, and over here there is the one of the founding father of India.
And so I think you get the gist. He's talking about this Gandhi statue that was in a local park. He gives some context about who Gandhi was. He presents this mystery that one day he walked by the park and Gandhi was sawn off at the ankles and there was walls up. And he does a little digging and he learned more about controversies related to Mahatma Gandhi and his conduct towards women, and that the uh, sawing of the statue was related to that. And so he kind of presents it to students like, hey, I was just walking my dog one day and I see a statue sawn off. And, I always saw Gandhi this one way. And then digging into this issue, I learned more about this figure. And so he's trying to model for the students, is anything like that going on in your hometown, right? Can you investigate that? Um, the hope being that in the process of observing a student observing their neighborhood or where they live, they're using some of their academic skills, but using it in this kind of maybe not traditional academic context. And then he gives them guidance on how they can make a presentation video about it, like a PowerPoint sort of video, and models for them what their presentation can look like. And then the students submit it. So that's kind of one example of an assignment. Um, Another example, and some of you may know Alessandra Early and Nicole McKenna. They're in the Law and Police Science Department, and they made an entire series of assignments called this Learning in Disguise Toolkit. And a lot of them are attempts to reckon with reduced attention spans in students, and probably all of us now. And so there are a lot of assignments that use TikTok or social media, things like that, that students may be familiar with. And similarly, ask them to do some investigation of their sort of social media threads and try to find the themes that they're talking about in their course. And it gives a few different assignments to help students do that. What this toolkit actually is, what it looks like. You'll see it's a page on this book, and then it's got these subsections that have the different assignments. So one assignment is a article scavenger hunt. It describes what that assignment is. It has a bibliography. It even has the student-facing assignment sheet So an instructor could copy paste this out of this book and put it into their Brightspace or put it into a PDF, whatever they wanted. Then it has the next assignment. It has a PDF version of each assignment. Um, so just so you're sort of seeing the mechanics of how this can work, this is, I would say, relatively simple in the sense that everything's on a page. You can link out to other materials. Just so we see, you can click on the PDF and then you can open the PDF right there in your browser. You could download it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm I'm just scrolling through and showing because I think what's interesting and maybe cool about this is, admittedly, this is not like the most colorful, super designed material, but it's very usable. Like you can just copy and paste, you can put it into any format that you want. And it's relatively durable in the sense that if there's an update to Pressbooks or an update to your computer, it's not like this has a whole bunch of things popping out and dropping down and animating, and so it's not likely to break. It's very usable. It's going to work the same way no matter what sort of computer you have or what sort of web browser. Um, so that's kind of somewhat in the spirit of OER. Like, we don't want it to look terrible, but we want it to be usable mostly, more so than how it looks. Um, so this is a whole series of assignments that are available here, and I'm just going to show you one other one. So this is another summative assessment. Again, it's in this faculty instructional resources book. So this is like a companion textbook to the main textbook. This is by Nora Cronin, who's an instructor who's taught this course several times. And this is an assignment where students essentially do a kind of debate, but they're also role playing as justices in the Supreme Court and as attorneys in a Supreme Court case. And this is just like, this is the assignment sheet, but obviously it's linking out to some other materials, including the audio of some of the actual arguments from the actual Supreme Court case. Um, so this, um, in like, again, naming one of these pedagogies, active learning, you hear a lot about like retrieval of information. So you get students to go back to the information again and again and restate what they've learned. I think one of the ideas here is that the student is going to role play being a justice and attorney, but they're also, if they get stuck or they're not sure what the next step is, they can just go back to the actual case and see how the actual people did it. And they can decide, do I want to model myself after that real life justice or attorney? Or do they say, I don't like that person, I don't like what they did, so I'm going to model myself off of somebody else. So, in small but important ways, they can make some critical decisions about how they complete the assignment, how faithful they want to be to the original or not. Um, and again, the PDF is always there. So these are just some of the assignments. I wanted you to see kind of where they live in this faculty instructional resource. The idea here is that this sort of stuff would probably go into their course in Brightspace, right? And the students are using it there, but it's accessible for the instructor here. So they don't need special permission to a CUNY folder or file or something like that. Um, I showed you some of the case summaries from street law. Um, I want to just show you, like, we're talking about technology, how are students interacting with the technology. Um, they're on this textbook platform. You can do some slightly fancier things, like make an interactive timeline. So this one is an interactive timeline. Um, each kind of icon or item here. It's talking about another seminal moment. And then the timeline itself is down below. You can kind of scrub through it in that way. So that's a thing that faculty can do. This was made by a librarian and instructional designer. Um, but there are many um, examples of things you can do on Pressbook now that use this thing called H5P, which is like a version of HTML, like some code you use on the web. I'll show you some examples. One is you can create a question where you speak the answer. Um, I don't know how well it will work while I'm on Zoom, but if I say something like, yeah, if I say something random, it's like, no, that is not the aim of restorative justice. It's not your mumbling. Um, so this is an option here. You can use this as a way to, and it will score the student. They can look at the solution if they want. Um, these are the things that it heard. This was the correct answer. Uh, Rehabilitation. And so now I got it right. Um, there are some other features like this, which are like marking the correct keywords. So in this one, we have a passage about criminal justice, and the assignment or the activity is to click on the words that are key concepts. If I just click around at random, and then I ask it to check, oof, but criminal was key, but a lot of these other words weren't. So it's letting me know, right? And I could look at the solution, retry it. The idea here, I guess, pedagogically, again, is like these are small, relatively low stakes ways to reinforce key ideas besides just asking the student to independently memorize. So if there are certain terms or vocabulary that are important, the student can engage with it this way. They can still see what the correct answer is. They can go back to it and internalize it a little more. So these are all features that can be put into the digital textbook. Faculty could make chapters or assignments that have these activities embedded in them, and some of them do. I'm just gonna show you, for instance. So this is Victoria Perez Rios wrote an article, a chapter for this textbook about the criminalization of catcalls. Um, it has this sort of overview, has her personal experience. She's doing a comparison of the USA and Spain. There's little kind of patches to click out to other resources, but I believe she also has, yeah, some figures, some images that she created. Um, Tables, et cetera, et cetera. So these articles can also, a version of this article also had some of those H5P activities in them. So that can end up in the article as well. And let me just show you another one. This is a history professor who, instead of writing a chapter, made a video that addressed an issue. So Fritz Umbach in the history department noticed this issue that lots of students kept making similar errors or having similar issues with statistical discussions of statistical biases. So he worked with like a professional videographer to make a nicer version of a video that he used in his classroom. I'll just show you a couple
While the
seconds
Supreme
of
Court
it.
has declared Terry stops the more legally accurate, we get very
Just
different
let me see.
percentages. Even though the number of both blacks and whites stopped are exactly the same, if we change the denominator, the officer has stopped 50% of the blacks they encountered, but 100% of the whites. In this scenario, the numbers suggest there's at least the possibility of police bias against whites. Same number of stops of blacks and white.
Okay. I guess that was a weird point to click on, but he's showing that the statistics can be manipulated. And you see he has these kind of fancy visuals that he did not create. He worked with like a videographer to do that. Um, and there's some text uh, interspersed with the videos. So those are some somewhat fancier examples of what one can do with this platform in terms of audio visual. Um, but a simpler example that is not part of this textbook and that is created by one of our audience members. I don't know, Marissa, if you want to talk about this at all, but this was part of a separate OER project that we did. Um, and I just want to show you this because this is also can be done through this Pressbooks platform. Like you saw, it's just a page it can link out. This exists on a Google Doc and has some background. Marissa, I don't know if you want to talk about it really quickly, not to put you on the spot. You don't have to.
It's never putting me on the spot. I was so excited that we made it through the e-reader that I had nothing to do with, and my name wasn't mentioned. And I was like, oh, maybe he's thinking of Alessandra. No, here it is. So, um, when Mike was talking about how durable the low design OER stuff is, I think that this is kind of where this fits in, is my students are sick of having to learn a new technology platform for like every professor. And even though that like voice grading thing like seems really cool, A, I am not an expert in restorative justice, but my answer might not have the word rehabilitation in it. It might be more like forgiveness or like a restoration of conditions. And if the AI marked me wrong and I was a student, that would stress me the fuck out, right? So like with that kind of intel from the students in a non-systematic way in mind, I made an in-class assignment that like could not be more low tech than it is. So basically, that first page with the context that Mike showed, I am trying to teach them about the difference between expert knowledges and subjugated knowledges. The way Foucault talks about it, the way Patricia Hill Collins talks about it, whatever. But you can see the language would not impress my colleagues. Like this is written to a 19-year-old, right? Who might be overwhelmed by the language otherwise. So then you can see right below, no, right there, Mike, the link. So Marxist.org is the OG OER, right? Like before that even had a term, all of the Marxist literature was compiled on Marxist.org because we reject private property and profit, right? Okay. So it links them to a completely free edition of The Poverty of Philosophy by Karl Marx, right? And like it's you can jump with the jump links, just like Mike showed us on the other stuff, like except this has been up there like for a really long time. Okay, so you can see that they could read it on their phone, they could read it like on the go, they could print it out, whatever. It's all easy peasy. So then the next line here, I give them a link to a song by a rapper named Immortal Technique, who most of them haven't heard of because this album is from 2000 and our kids like were not even close to being born yet at this point. But it has the whole this song by this rapper, and they often find it very easy to connect with because he's Peruvian and we have such a large Hispanic population. And for those of you who are fans of Lin-Manuel Miranda of Hamilton fame, Immortal Technique put him in a locker when they were in high school. So the kids get like a kick out of that. They feel connected to it. But Immortal Technique is serious with these lyrics, right? So they also have a link to be able to read the lyrics, even though they can put like subtitles on the video, etc. So they've looked at that big scary book. They've listened to the rap song kind of editorialized. Now you can scroll. And so the kids have access on Brightspace to this in this literal Google Doc, right? The only reason it has boxes like it does is because I stole them from Mike, right? So this required like zero ability to format, right? But when you paste it into a new Google Doc, it looks exactly the same every time, right? So they'll look at this view only version on Brightspace. They'll move it into a Google Doc that they own, that I have access to as an editor, and then they don't have to submit anything. But what I'm doing is guiding them in small groups in class with no other real need for the internet, let alone AI. And I give them snippets of lyrics from the songs or quotes from the text. And then I give them very clearly marked questions of what I want them to try to think about, right? What is Immortal Technique trying to say? What was Marx trying to say in such a different context? And then like what's your analysis? And like I tried this for the first time last semester and they like fought. It was awesome. As they worked on this in class. And so then there's a point where they actually get to think about the course concepts, like change that comes from within versus change that has to be like forced from without, like all that kind of stuff. And in the end, it's really manageable for me because I just have all their Google Docs in a folder. I click through, I look at what they wrote. I can do a quick comment if I have something to say, or I don't have to. And to bring this full circle to where I started, the students are really pissed that we're using AI and telling them not to, right? So the thing about the Google Doc thing that's so low tech for them is they know it's me, right? And they can like hear the voice that they have from me as a lecturer in my comments. And if they reply, not only do I reply, I like give them more points, right? Like that sort of thing. So it's like a living relationship. And these are in-person classes, but I did this online sync for a different course. It wasn't literally this assignment, but this Google Doc conversation. And like the students that I literally never saw in person, we had reply chains like we were texting in our Google Docs, you know? So you can get a like better sense of like how the assignment hits rigor. Like look at the wording of these questions. Like the I am not treating them with kid gloves, right? They're hard. But because it's been couched in a learning community and confidence in their own ideas and opinions and analyses, I think it like works really well in the same vein as the assignments that are in the e-reader, but I had nothing to do with that project.
Thanks so much, Marissa. Yeah, it's what's also cool about this format, which you were just talking about, but like say you had a section of a class that's totally in person, and say you had a section of a class that has some Zoom meetings, you could still use this either way. And like, I've taught in-person classes where you have folks do something on a Google Doc and then you project the Google Doc onto the screen. And you can even have students like edit or comment on other people in real time, obviously, because it's a Google Doc. So it is now in 2026, a Google Doc is pretty low tech, but it still like does a lot of stuff. It's
And
pretty
this could, but
versatile.
this could be a hard copy worksheet. Like I know that a
Mhm.
lot of colleagues like in my department have literally started ordering those blue books again that the students were handwriting exams in. Um, and they are having them take time in class to write by hand with no devices allowed. And that would totally work. Like I could print this out, make the boxes bigger, and they could just fill it in too. I don't know why anyone would want to do that, but for those who want to go real low tech, like they can do that without having to remix anything.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, you could kind of make your own custom blue books if you wanted. So, um, yeah, this is just a cool example. I wanted us to see it like, you know, simple. It sounds like it's worked out well for you. So, yeah, these are. Um, and so that's like another assignment example. Just so you can see, right? It's just because we're talking about sort of digital technologies and this digital textbook, It's sort of to your taste. It can get as fancy as you like, or it can get as simple as you like. Again, I think similar to like the formatting of the book itself, which is has durability in mind and like ease of use and access. I think kind of the ethos is use the technology that actually, helps you teach what you want to teach in your class and matches your appetite for futzing around with technology issues. Um, so, whoops.
Are you
Yeah,
taking
these,
questions yet?
yeah, exactly. I think you guys have seen quite a few of these assignments and chapters now. There are a bunch more you can check out. You can kind of access this through a Google search. I'll put some of these in the chat here. Oh, and Marissa, I see in the chat you're asking, did Fritz have funding for a videographer? He did through grant funding. Oh, I see Wynn's here too. So yeah, Wynne was able to pay him to work with a videographer to make that video. And he actually made several videos.
I mean, that
And
was what I was going to ask you anyway. Like if you're taking questions now, is I've noticed that um all this OER stuff is pretty consistently compensated and has been. Like I remember we got offered $750 to take any course and convert it to OER in like 2018 or 19, right? Like it was like a while ago. Um, and I was wondering about if the like funding is continuing to be robust for CUNY compared to like most of the stuff we work on. Because like for example, my big OER project they did with you where I was like making the assignment where they pretend they're like a public defender and they're writing a mitigation statement to a judge on adult felony cases. And like I got a stipend to make that assignment, but I paid a public defender to consult on the assignment and to redact real case files and stuff. And so I was wondering how like the call for proposals might be in the future. So there's like a built-in thing to say, I need a consultant and stuff like that. Like, and since Wynn jumped on, I was like, oh, I should probably ask this now.
yeah, no, that's great. And also that's like the perfect, like I said, you're like the perfect, you're the plant that doesn't even need to be planted. Wynn and I, conveniently enough, were just at a OER reps meeting, like a CUNY-wide one. So a bunch of different CUNY schools. Um, they're we're all operating under the assumption that there's continued funding. The process is a little bit different. It's a little bit stricter. CUNY is auditing. Um, yeah, and you can contact Win if you have like a specific project. Um, both some parts of the e-reader. Now, the e-reader was originally funded through this Teagle Foundation, which is separate from the OER grant, but they're all kind of under Wynn's purview. And people who have done e-reader projects have done other projects with us. Um, I would say, yeah, we've had people do a lot of good projects. Something that we are trying to focus on now is we need to get some of those projects like out into the world. So we also need to post them onto CUNY Academic Works, which is a repository of OERs. Let me just show you that really quickly and give you the link in case you haven't ever seen it. Um, because there is, yeah, sort of stricter auditing now. So there's a little bit more pressure to show like some result of the work and of the funding. Um, Let me just share this with you. This is CUNY Academic Works if you haven't been there before. It has a whole open educational resources section. Um, but you can also search by college. You can search other things. There's some John Jay folks here. Some of Marissa's stuff is here. That recent assignment I actually need to add. But one thing is, yeah, something I am trying to do is add more of the projects that we've worked on with people. to this repository so that it's also more visible to the CUNY world, as well as the John Jay world. Um, so that's a long-winded way of saying what Wynne said kind of more succinctly, which is that there definitely is funding for different projects. Reach out, but it will probably be slightly different in the sense that we're experiencing more oversight. So trying to have the projects be focused and trying to have them all end in getting posted to either academic works or something like Pressbooks, um, which can add another, it takes a bit of doing beyond just the creation of the assignment and the piloting of the assignment. But it's a great question. Yeah, did anybody else have questions, thoughts, observations? Has anybody done anything like this before on their own? Yeah, Ellen?
Uh, this is fantastic work. I'm just so impressed that seeing collaboration from different faculty members across time. It's just absolutely amazing. Um, and it's thrilling to see OER, that the creation of OER that can be shared within and beyond CUNY. It's absolutely marvelous. It goes so much beyond just focusing on zero textbook costs. I do have a question about accessibility. You mentioned that the Pressbooks are accessible. Are they accessible to people who are challenged, who have various, reading challenges, whatever, to the extent that will keep CUNY in legal compliance this spring as the new regulations come into effect?
Yeah, that is a great question. I was using accessible in probably too broad a way. I don't know, for instance, if the e-reader, doing something like text to voice, if
It
that
reads to me.
capability is built in.
It reads to me because it's through Chrome.
Oh, okay.
I've tried it. It reads to me.
The Chrome reader will do it. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it can be done through Chrome. I don't know that there's something built into Pressbooks that will do that. Um, all of the all of the pages are, which this is kind of a roundabout thing, but all of the pages can be downloaded separately as PDF, converted to other files that can be used in different ways. So you're not just stuck with the HTML version. Yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question, or are there other
Yeah,
specific
yeah,
issues
no,
that?
no, that's fantastic. We've been hearing a lot about requirements for making sure that PDFs are accessible, for making sure that we have videos that are closed captioned, for making sure that images have alternate texts, and all sorts of um, other adaptations, making sure that they're available. So I'm just curious. I assume that Pressbooks must have something sort of built in to the platform. This is fantastic, though. I'm blown away. I'm really impressed with the work that's being done. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, lots of faculty. I think Adrian, who's in our group here, I believe contributed, or it might have been a different OER project. So yeah, it's been a lot of faculty have done a lot of great work on this. Um, that just to show you again. I think to your point, Ellen, about something baked into um, to Pressbooks, I do think this H5P, I mean, we looked at some that were doing sort of interactive assignments, but I believe part of the functionality of this is that you could also have, I don't know the details of all that can be done, but you could write something such that maybe it's making the text bigger on command or changing the spacing, um, or assignments that can be altered or customized, things like that.
And can
I
I
don't
just
know.
add something too? Is
Yeah.
that baby steps. Like I understand, Alan, that you have like different responsibilities as our head librarian with being in compliance. But I co-taught a course last semester in a department with an instructor who will not be named. And we used their materials from the previous semester, and every single thing that the students were supposed to read was a bad scan from a book with handwritten notes randomly in the margins. And even our tech savvy students just it was really hard work for them to get through that obstacle and then read the stuff. And so if we're using Pressbooks, even if it doesn't meet every single one of these new guidelines, it is such a leap forward from what a lot of the students are currently working with, just because instructors are reusing what we had to deal with when the technology wasn't there. So I just want to add that. Sorry, Eva, I know you wanted to say something.
No, thank you. Yeah, Eva?
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say anything, but I want to echo. I'm blown away by everything that I've seen. And I did want to find out because I had the e-reader, our e-reader open, but I'm not sure in the Justice e-reader, do we have also those sample lessons, or do I have to go to Pressbook for that?
So the e-reader, and sorry, I probably gave you the links in a very chaotic way. So
No,
the
I
link
just
I'm
didn't.
putting in now is this is the e-reader that the student would see. That's like the textbook version of it. So that lives on Pressbooks. And then this second link here, this is the faculty resource guide. Both of these they live on essentially a website called Pressbooks. These are just links to save you time to get to it. But if you Google John J. Justice e-reader, you'll get it. And you wouldn't need like a CUNY login or anything like that. Anybody can see it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Um, I know we're have just a few minutes left. Um, so one thing I just wanted to mention, which is going to be familiar to some of you, but I do think is interesting and important, is when I'm talking about OER, I'm talking about this digital textbook. Um, one key difference is, let me just share my screen really quickly to illustrate this point. There are assignments that use, for instance, a YouTube video, or I was talking to Dan before the presentation started about a bunch of math open source educational materials, right? Like YouTube videos, textbooks, right? That are amazing. That's one category of open materials. That's open access. It's free to students. You can just go and use it. You can put it in your class. Um, a lot of the stuff on this textbook, though, on this e-reader, and or potentially Marissa's assignment, depending on if she chose to have it be this way or not. But these are OER in the sense that you can remix them, meaning on the e-reader, for instance, I could take Nora's assignment here. I can copy it, I can paste it into a Google document, and I can just start changing the language and the words and use it as my own. I just link to where I originally got it from. And so similarly, a chapter like um, Crystal Ensley wrote a chapter about the 50th anniversary of hip hop culture and a related assignment to it. I can take that, I can copy, paste into another document, I can change it. I could have it be the 50th anniversary of hip hop culture and jazz and stuff about jazz, right? So that's a key difference between OER and like just the free stuff. And I just want folks to be aware of that. You don't have, it's not that you have to make your materials editable by other people. You can put a more restrictive license on it, But the idea is that if everybody creates materials like that, it's easy for other instructors to adapt it to their purposes. Yeah, Marissa?
It wasn't complete enough for me to send it to you guys as like work sample yet, but the guy that I oversee the journal with that's at San Francisco State, he did a version of my Immortal Technique assignment last semester too. Um,
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
students loved the idea that when you copy paste something, that you can remix it, right? Because that was how he credited my assignment. It was like da 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 remixed by and then his name. And they
That's
love that
nice.
idea because they're so mad at us for how we think about copy pasting as being such a like deviant act. You could at least change the font, right? That kind of thing. And they're like, we're living in a different environment of knowledge where you copy paste and remix, and they feel like it's with the times. So I just wanted to add that too.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be used really well. I mean, we have 1 minute left, but I'll just say one use case that has come up a few times. There's another organization, OpenStax. They make a bunch of really well-designed OER textbooks in a bunch of disciplines. Um, they have one on sociology, Introduction to Sociology. We did a seminar with some people in the psychology department, right? Now, some parts of psychology and sociology are very different, but for instance, some things like research methods have a lot of overlap. So if you want to, or for folks in the criminal justice department, you can take just that piece of the psychology book or the sociology book and do a control F, control find, and change sociology to psychology or edit some of the words. And now you can make a customized textbook chapter without having to do it all from scratch, right? So the idea is you can cobble together a totally customized material from other places. Okay, I think we're at time. Thank you all so much for coming and your great insights and questions. And yeah, reach out to Wynne or me if you want to participate in any of these projects in the future.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.